Well, hello, Steve.
We're really.
And when they were joking about Absalom's hair and getting caught, and
I think we're on.
I remember in the seminary one time this guy who had really curly hair, a lot of it, back in the days of afros, and he was reading that story. So when he got to the part where Absalom got caught in the tree, then we all laughed and laughed and laughed. But then he had to keep reading, and Absalom gets killed. So then it was sad. So we went from humor to sadness. So.
I do love that they stick those little things in.
Yeah, it's funny, those
Yeah.
little lines or little scripture humor. Welcome, everybody.
Yes. We're rolling.
Oh,
So what was your favorite part? So is that
yeah,
the
and they
first
should
question?
think about this too. What was your favorite part, or what scene moved you most or messed with you in some way? Who wants to begin?
I had a lot of favorite parts.
Like every part?
So what was your favorite
The one thing
favorite
that hit
part?
me right off the bat was how important family was to all of them.
Yeah,
Even the very first scene, which was way before everything.
1,000
else.
years earlier. Yeah,
But then, they're talking about Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, and then it carries on into the time that we're in now, is how family is a big, 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 big deal.
even for Matthew, who's
Yeah.
alienated from his family, but still gets his food,
Yeah.
goes over,
And then, yeah,
looks in.
and I guess the assumption is he decided that they didn't want to see him.
Right, he didn't want to disturb them,
Right.
or he didn't want to be disturbed.
Right.
So he went and ate with his dog.
But that was interesting. That I don't know that I had caught that before. Him carrying, like, bringing that food to potentially contribute to
Right.
his family,
Right.
and I don't. It's as I saw it tonight, I thought about in his mind what was his thought process. Like, do I have the courage to knock on the door and see if they'll let me come in? Or I mean, I don't. Clearly, we don't know.
Right.
But it was as if he made it all the way there, like he had that was his intention,
Couldn't go in.
and couldn't go in.
Mm-hmm.
Because part of me thought, well, he was just checking to make sure his family was okay, but then why bring the food?
Right. Right.
I mean, or maybe he hoped that someone would see him and say,
Join us.
Matthew, come.
And all these different families. Matthew and his dog, and Andrew, Peter and his wife, and then Mary and Nicodemus, of course. And it did make me think about, okay, so which one would I feel most comfortable at? And it sure wasn't Nicodemus.
Right.
And sometimes I feel like, for me, as the whole idea of hospitality and thinking that it has to be something spectacular, no, it's about inviting people into your life. And into your, she makes that comment at the very, very beginning, like 900 years before Jesus, about even our neighbors who we do not know.
Uh-huh.
And I feel like that's what we're kind of invited to, is that kind of radical hospitality
Yeah.
where we invite people in. But that was your favorite moment.
Well, that was my first impression when the thing started. Was how, I think that's what they were trying to show. That's what I got out of it. Anyway, was how big of a deal family really is. How important it is.
Right.
Yeah.
And intertwined with faith, because it's the whole Sabbath celebration and the celebration of this is who we are, and we're shaped by that. And the mom teaching her son at the very beginning, this is why we do this, because this is who we are. Yeah.
Bree?
My favorite part is Mary setting up for Shabbat. Because she's just like, she was with her friends before and they were surprised but also so excited for her that she was going to be like doing Shabbat, and she hadn't in so long, it sounded like, and so trying to help her figure out how to make the bread, and she was excited about what she had. And so I like the part of her setting up and just how careful she's being, but also making it very inviting.
I loved when Thaddeus and James show up at the door. She's like, "Who are you?" Come in. Like, she's just happy to have guests.
Barnabas,
Yeah.
wasn't it? Was it James?
James and Thaddeus come together.
No Chris.
Thaddeus.
Barney.
No
Barney
Chris.
comes in earlier.
I knew that, I was just trying to throw it out.
So James and Thaddeus show up. And why are they there? Who told them about this?
It's unknown.
Yeah, I don't
Yes.
know.
Whose students are they?
Jesus.
Boom! Jesus, you know he put him up to this. He loves Mary. He knows this is her first Shabbat. He's excited for her. He has to make sure there are guests there. He's so thoughtful like that. He sends Thaddeus and James to knock on the door. And they're so sweet. You know, they're like joking with her and they're saying things. And they sit down. And she has guests. And to me, that's the perfect example of disciples of Jesus. Go where he sends you. Show up. Just be yourselves. He'll be there too. He'll show up too.
Yep.
But show up. You don't have to do anything more than that. Just go where he sends you. Show up and see what happens. Well done, you two. I mean, I just felt like, yeah, good job. And the whole line too, Shabbat Shalom, Sabbath peace. Sabbath peace. What happened to Sabbath peace? I want Sabbath peace. A Sunday, day of rest, a life where family, God, neighbor, candlelight dinner is important. Maybe central to life.
Yeah.
When-
That's what I liked.
And Father and I were talking earlier about what Sunday used to look like. I mean, it's a long time ago now, but
When we were kids and there was nothing open.
Yeah.
Nothing open, right?
nothing was open on Sunday. And so it's just such a different feel.
It really is completely different.
Yeah.
People knew my dad was Catholic and a weirdo in a way because he did custom combining, combined for everybody. He wouldn't do it on Sunday because he's with his family. And I think about that now, and I seem to throw in a load of laundry and do all kinds of stuff because I have to. My dad shut down his primary income.
Yeah.
My grandparents did nothing.
God bless
I
him.
mean, he lived on a farm, and my dad told me this story that one day some guy got stuck and came to my grandfather's door and said, can you get your tractor and pull me out? And he goes, no. You can have my tractor. He gave him the keys to the tractor. But
Wouldn't.
he wouldn't, they didn't do nothing.
hmm And I think in a certain way it's participating in something bigger than you. You know, so often today we have this, personal choice. Well, it was my choice to, I'm going to take Sundays off, or so I'm choosing to do that. It's just my personal choice. But this is being part of something bigger than you and connected with the Almighty. And the whole community did it, and we used to do it. I know there are a number of folks who will argue that Christianity began to decline in the 1950s when we lost Sunday. That once stores chose to open on Sunday, once the blue laws went away and you could buy liquor and everything else on Sunday, then we were no longer a Christian culture. That it started back then. People argued that it was because they didn't pursue this last year. No, this has been going on for 50, 60 years now, this regular move away as a culture that honors that. Now, if you go to Israel, the Sabbath laws are still enforced. There's no buses, no taxis, nothing goes on the Sabbath. The stores are shut down, so the Sabbath is honored as a higher cultural value. So,
It's hard to argue with that, because that is kind of when it all went away, and if one store opens and the other store is gonna have just
yeah,
a domino effect.
yeah.
So, Father, what was your favorite part?
Well, I had many. But I really liked how Mary described her healing to Nicodemus. And she doesn't get it. All she knows is that man. Just that man. Jesus. His presence. His calling me by name. His reading a bit of scripture to me changed me.
And I am his.
Yep. And I liked that she used the word redeemed. I am redeemed.
Wow.
That it was not I'm healed, I'm restored, but redeemed. And that word has a those of you in the Bible study know this, that that's an ancient kind of understanding in Scripture of the one who does the redeeming, who redeems you, the Goel. So if you're captured, if you're kidnapped, if any of those kind of things happen, then somebody in your family has to be the redeemer, has to be your Goel.
Okay.
So the redeemer had to go in, and so there's this common role in the Old Testament of somebody who comes in and does the redeeming. So they pay or they fight for you, or they do those kind of things. And so Jesus kind of falls into that same kind of pattern. And then Mary names that, I'm redeemed. Yeah. Oops. Set free. Yeah.
And Nicodemus says, "It wasn't me.
Yeah.
Somebody
else."
So perplexed.
Oh.
Poor Nicodemus.
Yeah. But I love his intrigue
Oh.
and his honesty, because he really does
wrestling.
want to figure this
Yeah,
out.
he does. You can tell he's really.
His wife, not so much.
No, she's continuing
She
to.
needs some gold hair stuff going on. She doesn't have time for this actual.
Come on, don't mess with my life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The other part that I thought Ann was going to steal, because I told her this morning. She wanted to, so I'm going to say it before she does. Was a little subtle where they're having the Shabbat at Nicodemus's place, and the Pharisee comes to the door and he tells his wife, "Go get a good seat."
Yeah.
And I think it's in Matthew where they talk about don't sit at the head of the table.
Yeah.
Right.
And then in Luke, it's like the humble, the exalted will be humbled, and,
Yep.
and the humble will be exalted. And I thought they just threw that, because I told Ann, I rewound it about 3 times thinking, that's think they're trying to do that on purpose.
Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful. And I want to sit on his, can my kids sit on your right and his left? Do you know what you're asking?
Yeah, yeah.
It's just like, oh, can I have a good spot?
Yeah.
And the head muckety muck, when he says, news of this kind grows legs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure does. Sure does.
It
I
will.
have no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. It will take over.
Yeah, look what the news of that kind did to the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
With a bunch of folk like Matthew and Peter, and
Mm-hmm.
look what it did. Mary. Still talking about him.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So how about comments from the,
Are there any comments?
yes? Two.
Let's hear it.
Okay.
200.
Natalie's- Let's
Well,
hear
just see
it.
if you can get a couple of them out of it.
All right. Well, Faye mentioned that she loved when Mary met Jesus at the door. When she had already set one extra place at the table.
Yeah.
And then Gail / Darlene, not sure which one or if both of them are there. How Mary explained what happened to her. She said, "I was one way and now I'm another."
Yeah.
And what happened in between was him.
Right.
Yeah. That's really good.
That's
Yeah.
gorgeous.
Well, it's so similar to our own lives. So I like how we can all relate to it, because that's how we describe things. Well, I don't know how this worked, and I don't know what happened there, but I do know this. I know Jesus was there.
Like the blind man. All I can tell you is, I was blind and now I see. Okay? That's all I can
How
tell
many
you.
times do I have to say this?
Right.
That's what
You're
I can
asking me
say,
again?
which is everything you need to say.
Yep.
I like how Mary is very, just, she's unsure of how everything happened, but she's still very defiant. When he calls her Lilith and she says, "I don't answer to that name."
Right.
And so she's still, like, she's amazed by this part, but she also still very firmly is, "That's not me anymore."
She's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
She really is.
Yeah.
And there's no problem speaking the truth to Nicodemus, to this leader.
Mhm.
This leader is, you didn't do it.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to figure out too, when Nicodemus was so perplexed about when they told him what had happened to Mary, I'm trying to figure out, was he perplexed in the fact that, did I do that? Or is he perplexed in the fact that I really don't think I did that, so I don't know what happened to her? I don't know.
Both.
That's
I
an
think he's-
interpretation, but-
He's just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And he has a degree of honesty in himself too. He's not really trying to claim something he didn't do. It's
Yeah, he didn't.
I gotta
that's
figure-
what I mean. He didn't.
I
right
gotta
off the bat
figure
say,
this
"Yeah, I
out."
did a good job on that. lady."
yeah, wow, that worked.
Yeah.
I can do that again.
Although
he
he's
was
probably
scared.
hopeful, like,
He was kind of
maybe.
scared. That's a
Yeah.
good way to put it.
Yeah.
Well, and he was wise too to say, "I would like to do my own investigation
right.
first," versus having
Somebody
all
else
of those
tell him.
others.
Right.
When I think there was that sense of like
I really don't think I
doubt
can do that.
about
Yeah.
his ability to do that, or his.
His line about he performs miracles and desires no credit.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
isn't that like Jesus?
Yep.
He does miracles and desires no credit, unlike
Like
us
me.
sometimes.
I want credit for it.
Wait, did you see what I did?
Come on.
I think that part with Nicodemus where he says, "Wait, it wasn't me," that also makes him very relatable as a character, because
Oh yeah.
why, like, of course you're gonna assume you're the one that did it.
Sure.
Like, she had
I said the
this demon,
prayers.
now she's fine. Yeah,
Right.
I mean, I was the last person to see you.
He's studying
state.
demons. He's studying exorcism. He's studying how to do it. He's trying to figure out how to get to her.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's thinking, maybe I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this worked.
But he still could have just said, thanks a lot, I'm a pretty cool dude.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
Here's a question for Father.
Maybe.
Which Sabbath do we observe? Who is right? Jews or Seventh Day? Question mark.
Adventists.
Questions.
Well, so they would be similar in their interpretation of the Old Testament. So they would, Friday at sundown till Saturday at sundown would be the typical Sabbath celebration, and that would still be interpreted as the Sabbath. What happened was early Christians began to celebrate the Eucharist on the first day of the week, so what would be our Monday, but in those days was Sunday, because that's the day Jesus rose from the dead. So for Christians, it was that celebration of the resurrection became more important, renamed the Sabbath. So the Sabbath shifts from one day to another between the Jewish community and the Christian community. There were a lot of tensions in those early years between that, and we would have the same experience today if somebody all of a sudden at Cabrini decided they were going to do things a different way, and the rest of us would be like, no, you're not, and this is the way we do them, and no, somebody rose from the dead, or we have this. So the Jewish community kind of pushed the Christians to the side because they were doing all these new things. And that tension continues to escalate. You see it mostly in John's gospel, where John is kind of mad at the Jewish community for kind of pushing the Christians out. So Christians and Jews end up celebrating different days. Each having it.
No right or wrong.
No, each having a Sabbath. But if you were following the Old Testament law, Christians would not be following it. Well, we don't follow a lot of things in the Old Testament law. So it's not the only one we don't follow.
Good. Thanks for the question. Wonderful viewers.
So I wonder how people would deal so we deal with a very powerful culture in our day, and we surrender to that culture on a regular basis, and all of us do it every Sunday when we go shopping and those kind of things that we choose not to live differently. I think it's fascinating to watch how Matthew, Nicodemus, and others are coping with the Roman occupation. Mm-hmm. So who would you be? How do you cope with a very powerful culture around you that's asking you to do things that are wrong? Simon, is caught in his trap, and so he's, at least it's all fictional, it's not in Scripture, but they're portraying him as cooperating with the Roman authorities so that he can survive.
I thought that was, though, a beautiful image of sin.
Mm-hmm.
That he thinks it'll be the easy way out. He thinks it's the good.
Mm-hmm.
He misses the mark.
Right.
He then gets caught in it. Dang it. He thought he was doing something good for his wife, his family,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just gonna.
Yeah,
And Andrew's like, please, don't, what are you doing? Because he loves him.
He is upside down because he says to his wife, do you have a warm bed? Yep. Do you have food? Yep. I mean, he thinks.
Look at you chop
Yeah.
those
He thinks
cucumbers.
what he's doing is for his family.
And yet, isn't that so
But
true?
he also knows.
What we always tend to do with sin, right?
Or
As
we
we
rationalize
justify it, or
it.
rationalize
Yeah.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course, because
Yeah.
It's a good.
It's a good. I make it a good
Yeah.
right now. This is the good. This is the best thing.
Which is probably what we all do for Sundays.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my kid's got a ball game, we gotta stop somewhere, and it's just like, I guess we're rationalizing that.
Yeah.
I spoke to a beautiful young lady today, and she's getting married, and she said, I really know that as a married couple, we're going to be up against a culture that doesn't have the same values we do necessarily. And how can we be strong enough to be different?
It's a good question.
And the whole time I'm thinking, and isn't that the question for all of us? But how awesome that this young lady's thinking, I want to choose values like.
And recognizing that unless they're very intentional as a couple,
They're not gonna have those
it's
values.
gonna just,
Right.
I mean, society will dictate.
Yep.
The culture will dictate.
Yep.
You gotta be a united force in that.
Yeah, good reminder for me.
Me?
Yeah, because it's easy to give in, to just surrender to the culture. It's so
Oh, it is.
powerful.
Well, no,
It's-
what the culture wants is something different. Like to look to somebody and say, oh my God, they live different. Look at them. That's weird. Like we looked at these dinners and we were like, oh, that's so sweet. Candlelight and family, that's so nice. Well, what the heck? That should be us.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but I think a lot of times we as churches buy into the whole cultural value system, and so we see busyness as a value. And how often do people? How are you? Busy. And then, what kind of response is that? But that's kind of like the expected response. Well, you're busy, so that's seen as a good.
Yeah.
Is busyness a good? But somehow, and so if as a parish we're busy, and as a pastor I'm busy, that's really a good thing. One of the nice things with COVID is it just stop.
Yeah.
Nobody can do anything. And so it kind of, sadly, we couldn't do the community things either, which was, we were seeing portrayed in the Sabbath celebrations because we were all isolated. But it did stop us from, all right, all those other values that you used to have, which was just be occupied, be busy, self-fulfilled, go on, keep going. We couldn't share that. Sorry, can't do anything. I'm stuck here all by
Well, and I
myself.
think too that, there's an opportunity for us to see that there's a lot of things we don't need to do that
Yes.
we do, that we
Right,
think we
right.
have to do.
Right.
But that's a great line. And, we do think that we look at that as an attribute, being busy.
Yeah.
It's not really that way.
Well, in the gal in that initial scene, 900 years before Christ, God, our family, our neighbors.
That was a very powerful scene. It really was.
What?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
What else is there?
No, it really was. Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah.
What else is there?
Yeah, and I don't know the mind of the directors in any of this in any way, but for them to choose that on the second episode, we're going to show a countercultural kind of value that is there in Judaism and it remains in Christianity, and we're going to tell the story shaped around this, and even show the evil that's creeping in, which is what Simon, and so they're still fishing on the Sabbath, and that's how they're cheating, and Simon's going to name that, but that naming is a betrayal, and all that just, it gets, as soon as you start breaking out of the values that God has given us, then things get messy.
Yeah, you
It's
just
not,
inching forward,
yeah.
farther away.
I think that deterioration between Simon and Andrew is so hard to watch. Like the scene when they're in the bar and Andrew says to him, fattening lambs before slaughter. And he's just like, he's so disappointed in him.
Uh-huh.
And because I'm the only one on the couch that hasn't seen this series before. So I'm really intrigued to see how they take that relationship because, like when Simon leaves Shabbat, like both Eden and Andrew look like their faces just like there's no coming back from this.
Yeah.
And then obviously that last scene with the Romans, very scary and eerie.
Yeah.
But I think it'll be really interesting to see how they obviously, hopefully at some point, make amends.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we can think through what that relationship prior to where we've been a part of it, what that was like. Obviously, they're partners in their business and in their decisions mostly. And so you imagine that it was in a much better place
Yeah.
previously.
Even in the first episode, it was so much more lighthearted.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Like Andrew was annoyed with him, but it was like, you're my brother. Like
Right.
this annoying.
And he
You're
teases
slow.
Yeah.
Simon about being slow,
Yeah.
and yes, yeah,
But
Did you
this
say
one
your
really got
favorite
real.
part?
I did. At Shabbat, when Jesus says Mary through the
right.
prayer. Any other comments? Oh, quiet group tonight on the.
So one of the other lines I thought was interesting is in their portrayal of Matthew. His centurion guard in that conversation he's having with him. Matthew says, "You think this is a choice?" It's like Matthew feels either by his own life or things happening around him that he doesn't have a choice here. This is not a choice. To be the tax collector, to whatever happened in his family, and how many of us, I wonder, will claim that the life we have is not a choice. Well, it was because of all these other things that happened around me, and that's not. I don't have a choice here. I'm not free to do something else. And so we end up betraying family and betraying our values, and all, like as Matthew's doing. Not a choice. This is not a choice. But he has all the consequences from those choices. He's so lonely. He's having Shabbat dinner with a dog in the street. That's his only friend.
Yeah.
Yes.
Literally.
And I didn't even get the sense that he was the biggest fan of the dog.
No.
I mean, he did share with. I think
Last resort.
I don't remember for sure as the
Somebody.
series goes on, but I assume there is a connection that goes on. But I got the sense he was, not too excited to have that dog around.
Wasn't in the first episode, wasn't he trying to like get the dog away from him at one point?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
did,
He was
yes.
like, no, like, get
Well,
away
you
from
could see
Yeah.
his personality not liking dogs.
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
Oh, because he's so cleanliness, and
Yeah.
the dog's going to be dirty.
Right. There's another line in that same conversation with the Romans that Matthew has, and he says, an understanding of what Peter can deliver. And it's like, that's kind of foretelling.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
You don't really wait till you see what Peter can deliver. He's not really saying that, but
Yeah.
that's kind of what it turns into be.
Well, I even peek at Matthew sitting there having Shabbat with the dog, and knowing, because we do know how the story ends. That this is a man Jesus is about to call
Mhm.
Yeah.
Gosh, that is so
Yeah,
gorgeous.
it is. I'm
That
kinda
Jesus
forgotten
has a
some-
real liking for me in my mess.
Mhm.
And everybody else in their mess, and if you don't think you have a mess, you're a liar. Everybody in their mess. He's just, it's so personal.
Mhm.
So, Matthew, just hang in there. Hang in there, Matthew. He just got beat up. That bothered the
He gets
heck
beat
out
up
of me.
regularly, yeah, because people
course
would
he
hate
does,
him.
'cause
You
he's
saw the
Yeah.
Roman soldiers walk by him and hit him with
Bam!
the arm.
Yeah.
Especially, and then the big shot dude, whatever his name was. What was his name?
Quintus.
Quintus.
Quintus, yeah.
Quintus, what a great character.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a good
Like
voice.
his hair.
Of course.
So
Not
relatable.
Quintus. Quintus is the guy who's his guard.
Oh, his guard. Then Gaius.
Okay.
Gaius is the.
And that's a great actor right there.
Oh, he
Yeah.
has the voice for this.
Oh my word.
The whole demeanor is perfect.
But I'm thinking Quintus should be nice to him after after the other guy
Yeah.
Shot.
thinks he's somebody. But no, he still gets beat on. He's a nobody. He's a sinner.
Quintus is still higher on the food chain than Matthew,
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mhm.
no matter if Gaius likes him
Mm-hmm.
or tolerates him. Or I liked how after you said last week, Father, that you see that in Matthew's gospel, the counting, like so meticulous, and then Gaius calls him like the keen observer, keen observation.
Yeah. Yeah.
He knows everything about Simon.
Yeah.
Mhm. Well, and the other thing you said last week about Matthew being so meticulous about writing everything down, so we know that that was a pretty, he probably wrote the gospel from notes that he took.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's certainly the producers
Got that.
Yeah.
trying to. Okay, he writes it all down.
Yeah.
He wrote that down.
So who was our favorite
Character this week?
character this week?
What a good question.
Boy, isn't that a good
I'm
question?
so glad somebody thought of that.
No. I don't mean to brag, Bree, but sometimes I just
Man, there's so
I can
many.
just come up with them.
I think I might have mentioned that to him this morning. That is a good question, though.
I liked Mary the best in
Yeah, I
this
think so.
episode. Her transformation, her willingness to try to do the Sabbath meal, and her. I think she's a very good actress too, and just her encounters with Jesus, the little subtle things going on in her face, and
Of course. Of course.
yeah.
Of course.
And I kind
I
of like
keep saying,
kinda
of
like
course.
Nicodemus too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's I don't know what he's trying to figure this out. I think it's just an interesting perspective of him knowing something's going on, but not knowing what's going on, and the confusion of this is obviously a very deeply religious man who's stumped.
Mm-hmm.
Stumped.
Yeah. Bree.
My favorite primary character is Andrew.
You liked him last time too.
I did. I'm one of 7, and so I can understand that relationship between siblings, and I just can empathize with the situation that he's in, because he's like trying to support his brother, plus also this is both of their livelihood.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but also, like, he just is seeing all the wrong with what Simon's doing. And so just dealing with that internally, but trying to support him, he's just so torn. But my favorite secondary character is is Mary's girlfriend, the one that's at the salon,
Oh,
and then
yeah.
also the one that she goes to that gives her the tips for making the bread. I just think, like Ann and I talked about a lot, it's so cool to see that Mary has such a support system around her, in a place where you wouldn't expect it.
Mm-hmm.
But clearly people that just care so much about her, and I think that's really neat.
Thanks, Bree.
Were you gonna pick her? Sorry.
No. But that's a good one.
That is a good one.
Mary. She's just, I've always loved her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this character, wow. Way to go, girl.
I think the other thing is she's so unassuming. I mean, she's
Yeah,
not
oh,
like
yeah.
she's not like going around, hey Jesus, hey, he got me. You know, she's just taking it.
How was that, Chris?
I know she did that. So anyway, she's just, you know, it's not a. She's just kind of taking it all in, and I think it's partly the actress too that's pulling that off.
Oh, but in scripture too, she's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She just shows up. Then she gets kind of a bad rap. Who cares?
Right.
She's there,
She's the first one to the tomb.
even if she is.
In her conversation with Nicodemus, it's not yet
My
our time to
our
know.
time,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not his time.
So she's just gorgeous
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and called and chosen and redeemed and all of
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
Secondary character, the two boys, the disciples
Oh.
of Jesus.
Thaddeus and James.
You know
What
what?
about Barnabas?
Well, Barnabas is hilarious.
Funny. I'm trying to think of who he
Barney, come
reminds me
on.
of.
You already know
I
who
haven't
Doug's
figured
favorite
out.
character
I
is.
know. I know.
Well, you know,
He does
even-
remind you of somebody.
The name Barnabas is kind of like,
Yeah.
you know, like for some reason, it's kind of a funny name.
When you meet him in heaven, he's going to take offense to that. All right?
He's gonna know that his name's not popular anymore.
Barney.
Well, when
But
I meet him in
anyway.
heaven, I'm going to tell him you were calling him Barney. I don't think he'll like that.
Chris. But the two guys who show up and they're delightful. They're so sweet to Mary, kind. She's like doing it wrong. They're like, oh, this is great. You got great food. Isn't that the truth?
Yeah. You've got
Anything's
food.
great as long as you got pretty good food.
Yeah.
And just go where Jesus tells you to go. Love it.
I thought it was too cool too. Jesus says, I don't know exactly how he says it, but to Mary, I trust they've
Been good to you.
Been good to you, or treated
Yeah.
you well.
Mhm. Yeah.
And she says, of course,
Yep.
which is a beautiful response. Of course.
Deke, your favorite character?
A secondary would be Barnabas, and I like the banter back and forth between him and that gal who were
Blind
guests
lady.
of.
Yeah.
Blind
Yeah, the
guy.
blind.
I mean, I thought it was very.
She's pretty funny.
I can read better than that.
Yeah. That's my kind of humor. I don't know.
And when she's giving him a hard time about never going to a Shabbat, he says,
You've never been
"No,
invited.
I've been. I've just never been invited."
Right.
I snuck in.
Showed up.
So, I would say Andrew, and I think for a similar reason Bree shared, but he stays the course, continues to encourage Simon to make the right decision, and yet he doesn't abandon him. I mean, he stays with him. He's
Right.
still with him, and he thinks he's making a bad decision, and he continues to try and stay with him to convince him otherwise. And again, it affects him just as much as they're partners.
Yeah.
I mean, it absolutely is affecting his life, but he stays by him and continues to encourage him to make the right decision.
And remember who invites Peter to come meet Jesus.
You're not looking ahead, are you?
Oh, I'm just saying,
Oh,
We
just
know-
from
In
the
this story.
gospel. Okay, gotcha.
we know this.
Gotcha. Yes, that's true.
She knows the ending.
Yeah,
I've
she
kind of
does.
forgotten the other episodes. I saw this a long time
Oh, yeah,
ago.
me too.
So I'm really anxious to see the
Well,
progression.
after this one, I too was like, oh, I should maybe just watch the next one.
Yeah. And the next one. This-
All right.
We're going to binge, folks. We'll be here till about Tuesday.
Well, any last questions? Anything come in?
Questions, comments?
Gail / Darlene had kind of a question / comment. He said maybe the dog represents how Matthew sees his life and is trying to get away from it. I don't know. It's a,
Yeah.
it's a really good comment question.
Matthew makes me so sad in this episode.
Okay.
Anything else?
Well, thanks everybody for joining us again for another week, and looking forward to next week with Jesus. Any last comments from our group here?
Just so everyone knows, because I know everyone's been on pins and needles waiting to find out. But season 1 of The Chosen was shot in Weatherford, Texas, and season 2 was shot in Utah.
Thank you, Bree.
Anytime.
We should give her some homework for this week.
Wait, I have other fun facts. Do you just want to know them?
Yes.
Yeah.
The Chosen is the first ever multi-season show about Jesus. And it's the highest crowdfunded project of all time. It raised over $10 million from 19,000 people, which I actually think that number is old. I think it's a lot more now that they're into
Probably.
season 3.
That's probably why they did season 2.
And they're continuing that same fundraising method, but instead they have the commercials, as Faye pointed out to me earlier, that ask you to pay it forward after you view them. And it's been translated into over 50 languages, and they're still
Great.
translating it into more, which is really cool. And you can go visit the set in Weatherford, Texas. It's called Capernaum Village. You can stay there and have experiences
Wow.
Wow.
like Shabbat.
Shabbat dinner with Jesus.
Or somebody.
You're preparing the dinner and you get a knock on the door.
Yeah,
Jesus!
So I think, folks, we should take the show on the road.
Absolutely.
perfect.
Texas, next stop.
Next week or
Thank you for those fun facts, Breezy.
anytime,
Keep them coming.
just for you. Oh,
We'll see you next week, live from Utah.
Texas.
Oh, is it Texas?
Yeah. That's season 2.
Season
Texas.
2.
Hey, but they're working on season 2.
They're working on season 3.
Where's that at? I don't know. Next
Nebraska?
time, would you know?
I think also Utah. Yeah, I can check it out.
Wahoo.
Nebraska.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Night.
Good job doing your homework.